OMalley here, and it is VEDA Day 9, but today I'm actually going to be doing monthly recommendations. Monthly recommendations is a good group hosted by Kayla, Rain, and Trina for between chapters, and each month there is a topic where we discuss our monthly recommendations for that topic, and August month topic thing is older books which were published before 2010, because a lot of times here on BookTube we talk about new releases, and books that are older than, published right now get a little bit put on the back burner and don't get the spotlight. So here are some books that are not only older than 2010, but I also think are slightly underrated here on BookTube and not quite as hyped. So I actually have a fair amount of middle grade books that I had to pick from, but I picked two. One of them is The Two Princesses of Bamar by Gail Carson Levine. She's the author of Ella Enchanted, and that book tends to get a lot of hype, but I really, really love The Two Princesses of Bamar. It is about two sisters, it's a fantasy, and one sister gets sick and the other one goes out on a quest to find the cure for her sister so that she doesn't die, and it's just really delightful. The next one is The True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle by Abby, and this I think is a kind of a cross between middle grade and young adult, because the character I believe is like 13 or 14. So it's like young adult / older middle grade, and it is a historical fiction about Charlotte Doyle, and she is the only woman on a ship on its way to America, and she is accused of murder, and it's awesome. I found there were definitely some urban fantasies that were older than 2010, and I really want to talk about all of them, but I'm only going to talk about a few. The first one is the Mercy Thompson series by Patricia Briggs. This is actually a really popular author for urban fantasy lovers, but since on BookTube not a ton of people talk about urban fantasy, I thought this would be a good person to recommend, because I think she's a really great introduction to urban fantasy / paranormal romance, and they're really fast reads, they're super short, and it is about Mercy Thompson, who is part Native American, but she's also a shifter. She turns into a coyote. She's actually a skinwalker, and she turns into a coyote. And she has her own mechanic business, and I think she's really awesome. But I also really love Kim Harrison's books. The Hollows, The Dead Witch Walking is the first book in the Hollow series, and it was published before 2010. And I really like this series, partially because it's longer. If you want to sink into a book a little bit more and not just have something quick to breeze through, but you want urban fantasy, I think this is a really good one for you. But then there's also The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, and this series has been going on for forever. The first book is Stormfront, and if you want to get into urban fantasy, but you don't really necessarily want the paranormal romance aspect of it, Dresden Files are totally for you. And also, here we are again, Jim Butcher, and we still don't have a release date for Peace Talks. Then for books that are definitely older than 2010, there is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, or du Maurier. I never know how to say her name. Someone please tell me how to say her name. But this is one of my favorite books. It's actually my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie as well, and it is about this woman who, in a whirlwind romance, marries Maxim de Winter, but then when she arrives at his home, there definitely is something amiss, and the memory of his late wife, Rebecca, still kind of haunts the home, and it's really great. It's a thriller, it's a romance, and it's just awesome. And then I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler earlier this year, and it has become one of my favorite books of 2017. It's definitely one of the books to beat for the year. It was published in the late 70s, and it is about this woman and her husband, and they are transported in time to pre-Civil War era to a plantation. And they kind of end up going back and forth between the plantation and their home in modern day setting, and well, at least in the 70s. At the time it was modern day. And I just think it was such a great, interesting look at biracial relationships and slavery and time travel, and also Octavia E. Butler was the first African-American woman to be published in sci-fi. So what more convincing do you need to read this book? And if you like historical adult fiction, Grayson OMalley by Anne Moore is one of my favorites. I actually haven't read this book in years, so maybe my opinion about it would have changed since like high school, but I really loved it. It is a story about Grace, and she lives in Ireland during the potato famine, and she's married off to a wealthy Englishman, and it's sad, but it's so good. And then finally, there is the book How I Paid for College, and this is I think it's young adult, but I remember I found it in the library in the adult section. But it is about this kid who he wants to go to Juilliard, but his parents will not pay for his college, and so he and his friends cook up some schemes to find a way for him to pay for college on his own. It takes place in the 80s, and it just makes me super happy. Like, seriously, my pitch for this is always, this book is if Ferris Bueller and Rachel Berry from Glee got together and made a book. And this is their love child of a book. And it's delightful because it's all musical theater-y, but it's also, like, shenanigans the way Ferris Bueller is. And it makes me super, super happy. So that is my pile of underrated books which were published before 2010. I hope you liked it. I want to hear about some of your recommendations for books that were published before 2010. I love your faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!